For our next project, we are going to make sculptures inspired by the art of Alexander Calder. Alexander Calder was born in 1898, over 120 years ago, and he died in 1976. Here in this photo, you see him working with one of his favorite materials, wire. As he said himself, "I think better in wire." Over his lifetime, Calder made hundreds of sculptures out of wire and metal. Calder also made sculptures for different cities, like Chicago. This is the Flamingo, constructed in 1974. This wasn't the only sculpture that Calder made for a city. This sculpture is called the Big Sail, constructed in 1965, located in Cambridge, Massachusetts, at MIT. How do you think this sculpture got its name? Saurian, made in 1975, is in New York City. What does this sculpture remind you of? And here is L'Homme, which means the man, constructed in 1967 and located in Montreal in Canada. Use your imagination. Does this look anything like a man to you? Why might Calder have named it that? Looking at these sculptures together, what do they have in common? What differences do you spot? Now we're going to paint all of our shapes. Cover your work surface with either a plastic tablecloth or a piece of scrap paper. This will keep the paint from getting on your desk. We'll be using acrylic paint. This is permanent paint that won't wash out of your clothes and is kind of hard to scrape up off a desk, which is why we're using a piece of paper underneath. You'll be getting a small bit of white acrylic paint in a cup. E-learners, you should have a container of white acrylic paint at home in your art kit. We're going to paint both sides and all edges of the pieces that you've already cut out of your thin cardboard. Work one piece at a time, one side at a time. You don't need a thick coat, so if you notice any streaks or blobs of paint, keep brushing them out until you have a nice thin layer of paint all over the surface of your piece. Notice how this is a big gloopy mess? Use your brush to spread it out and get a nice thin coat. Paint until there is no paint left in your paintbrush. If you use a thin enough coat, it will dry in minutes. When this piece is finished, set it to the side, grab another piece, and continue painting. This piece is almost dry to the touch. I'm going to put it off my paper so that I have a little more space for my wet pieces. When a piece is completely dry, when you touch it and no paint comes off on your hands, it means you're ready to paint the back. The back of my cardboard just so happens to be white, but both sides of your cardboard are brown, and both sides need to be covered with a thin coat of white paint. Once each piece has dried, it's time to paint the edges. Just take a little paint on your brush and drag it along the edge of your piece. You may get a little bit on the front or back. That's okay. Just make sure if it's a blob that you smooth it out. When your pieces are painted, paint one side of your base and your scrap pieces that you saved from earlier when you cut out your shapes. When working with acrylic paint, a fast cleanup is critical. Place your paintbrush immediately into a cup of water. If you are at school, I will collect your brush when you're done painting and put it in water for you. Be sure to clean any wet paint out of the paint cup that you used today. Take the corner of your rag, dip it in water, and wipe out the cup while the paint is still wet. If you wait till the paint dries, it will not come out very easily. Now I'm going to use a dry corner to wipe it the rest of the way and get paint out from any cracks and crevices that I see. The same goes for your fingers. All you need is the damp corner of a rag to scrub your fingers clean. If you do this quickly, the paint will come off very easily. If you wait a long time, it'll be harder to scrub it off. If you're at home, your brush has been sitting in water for a while. Tap it on the bottom of your cup and swish it around in circles. If the water coming out of your brush is a milky color, it means you need to trade for new water and rinse it again. Once the water coming from your brush is clear and colorless, your brush is clean and ready to set aside for future use.